Hey everyone, this is Nick LaRue from FilmSnobbery. I am here at my last day at Panic Fest, and it has been a wild ride. I've got to see some great movies. I'm here in Kansas City. I'm at the Screenland Armour Theater. They've treated us very well, probably treated us a little bit too well, because I feel like I gained a little bit of weight on this trip. I'm ready to go sit down and maybe take a nice bath. But that brings us to our next interview. I'm here with one of the folks from Bath Bomb, a short film that played earlier in the festival, and I've been looking forward to having this conversation the entire time because I really enjoyed it. So tell them who you are and what it's about.
Hello, I am Colin G. Cooper, director of Bath Bomb, which is a queer take on giallo aesthetics that tells the story of a gay couple, who are having an ostensibly romantic bath moment that takes a dark turn.
A dark turn, yeah. They have a little bit of a tiff, a spat, so to speak. One of it's so good in as much as like it's everything you want a short film to be. It's a one location, limited cast, but you convey all of the information very easily, and of course you have some awesome effects in there. Now, we've had a chance to talk throughout the festival, which is great. It also kills me for the interview because I feel like I've already asked all the good questions, so we're going to do some repeats now. Tell me a little bit about how the whole thing came together, because you were incredibly, I hate to call it luck, but you were able to like really put some awesome talent behind this. Let's talk a little bit about the production.
Totally fair and accurate to call it luck. So when I started to make it, this is my first short, and previously I directed music videos. I had intended to make it with the same crew that I usually make music videos with, but a producer that I had on board who helped put together the financing convinced me to kind of aim for, at least for the cinematographer role, because it was so important, aim for the best I could imagine. And there's a cinematographer in Toronto who is openly gay. It was important to me that they were queer, so that it actually had a queer lens. His name's Jeremy Benning. He shot all 6 seasons of The Expanse. He did Anna Lily Amirpour's episode of Cabinet of Curiosities and Guillermo Navarro's episode. He's done episodes of The Boys, a bunch of big stuff. It turned out I had a friend who had worked with him once, got his email address, pitched him the film through that, and then we had a Zoom conversation and then an in-person conversation, and then he decided to come on board. And then once he was on board, it kind of opened the doors for pretty amazing collaborators. The special effects that you mentioned, we have some crazy special effects props that were built by Walter Clausen's team, they've done the special effects props for Guillermo del Toro since Pacific Rim and to now. And Foley was a big part of the film. Other than dialogue, almost all the rest of the sound is Foley. That was planned that way, so we needed great Foley artists. And because of Jeremy, we were able to work with Footsteps, which is kind of pretty widely considered the best Foley team. They've been working since Cronenberg's The Brood, and in subsequent 40-some years have done a shit ton of huge projects. Most recently, they did the Dune movies, they did Barbie, they do TV series like The Handmaid's Tale, and they did our Foley, which was pretty crazy, and we were very fortunate for that.
I would also love to hear a little bit about two things. One, how did you cast Anders and all them for your for your short here, and also how did you go about settling on the giallo aesthetic for the actual shooting, especially because shooting music videos, there's so many different ways you could have taken that. So I would love to hear a little bit about casting, and then also the aesthetic.
Casting. So there's 2 characters, Jordan and Grant. Jordan is played by a guy named Anders Yates, who I was familiar with previously. He's primarily a stand-up and a stand-up instructor, improv. He teaches improv at Second City in Toronto. And the other role, Grant, Daniel Henkel plays that character, and he was one of many who came out for auditions. He's done small parts or day parts in a number of shows. Also, The Boys, connection with Jeremy there. He often gets typecast because of his cadence in period pieces. He was in the period episode of Cabinet of Curiosities as well, and a lot of different period shows that have shot in Toronto. He often plays, a single episode arc or a few episode arc as a person from the past. In terms of the aesthetic, I had never really incorporated any giallo tricks into music videos that I had done, but I had always wanted to make giallo, or specifically queer giallo. It's been like a forever dream of mine. And I've seen hundreds of them. There are hundreds of giallo out there, and I've seen most of them. I own over 100 of them on special edition Blu-ray. So I have like reels that I've made of the different tropes, camera tropes, like using split diopter, using smash zooms for moments of surprise, using slow zooms for moments of tension, and I put them all, as many of them as possible, in here, as many as that you can use in a single scene, single room situation.
Another thing, I've had the pleasure to have attended like the Provincetown Film Festival. I've gone to Outfest. So obviously queer cinema is always there. It's not like it's not like horror where they go like every couple of years they go like horror's back. But I do think that that queer horror specifically is having a bit of or queer cinema specifically is having a moment. And do you have any insight as why you would think that is happening specifically right now, or why it is really coming forward into more mainstream kind of consciousness?
I think there's kind of a lot of things influencing that in a perfect storm sort of way. I think that there's an increase in popularity in cinema from marginalized communities in general because of increase in activism. Even during the pandemic, there was an increase in activism for multiple different marginalized communities. And then I think that I do think there's an intersection between growing popularity in queer cinema and growing popularity in horror, because there is so much queer horror. If like the history of horror, not just as film but period in literature even is queer, and not coincidentally, there's been documentary series covering that fact that have come out recently and have been quite popular. And I think also queer horror that's been coming out recently has been really well received. So it's obviously helps that people have liked it, and then it's been successful. Yeah.
No, it's good. Didn't mean to put you on the spot for speaking of all of queer horror for that point. You're the spokesperson now, right? We've had the chance to speak a little bit about the whole thing. It's fantastic. One of the things that I'd love to go into a little bit more detail on in terms of developing the story, getting this down to exactly where you did, and as opposed to saying like, we could do these characters maybe with a couple other characters as a feature, or doing something like that. How did you settle on doing this as a short film? I would also love to know a little bit more about. There's some very key props in this thing. There's this movie is called Bath Bomb, so there is actually a bath bomb there, and I would love to know some of the challenges of making sure that you got all of these actual key props without giving too much away, but giving the getting them those shots that you needed to get with the limited amount of resources you probably had to work with.
Yeah, thanks. So in terms of making it a short, the original plan with taking on Queer Giallo was a number of long-form projects, but when I was pitching those even to people who have already expressed an interest in supporting me as a filmmaker, a pretty big obstacle to overcome is not a lot of people, especially money people, know what giallo is, and they don't understand the concept of like merging that with queer coding because they don't know what either of those things are. So I knew that I was needed to make a short in order to kind of prove the concepts, that they understood even what that meant, what the style would be like, what the pacing would be like, that type of thing. So I was actively looking for something that was short that could be turned into giallo, or already felt like it was in that direction and could be nudged further in that direction. And I met a writer, Michael Clifton, at FilmQuest in 2021, and he had a one-page screenplay from a one-page screenplay competition that had some elements in it that felt to me like they could be nudged in that direction. So the two of us developed that into the 10-minute short that this became. And then in terms of the special effects props, we were fortunate in that once we started working with Walter Clausen FX, they, for the amount of money that we agreed upon, which was not very much, they essentially agreed that they would make what we needed for the amount of shots that we needed. It was still, I wasn't asking. I could have asked for more and been more, quote unquote, safe in the number of copies of the props that they made, but I found a happy medium between like what I felt we could achieve it with, but not taking up too much of their time or taking advantage of the deal that they had given us. But there was a lot of trial and error in pre-production in terms of getting them to behave the way we wanted to. The bath bomb has to do a bunch of stuff like bleed and burst blood out of a certain spot, and then something comes out of the bath bomb, a body part, and there's a few of those in the film, the same body part, which you may be able to guess. And there was a lot of trial and error in getting those to behave properly, but they were really good with making sure that I was happy with the result before, saying, okay, you're at the end of the agreement now.
Another interesting thing about this was that you obviously you said you had previous experience doing like music videos and stuff like that, but this is your first short. And then for your first short, it's this embarrassment of riches of talent to work with. Did that add any additional pressure on you, or were you like, I've kind of done this before, so were you pretty comfortable behind the camera getting everything done?
Once we were on set, the first day I had like a little bit of an internal panic just because Jeremy's brought his crew that he had just shot. It hasn't come out yet, but they're doing Amazon's doing a series version of the Alex Cross books, and he had just finished shooting that, and it was a really big production, and he brought people to set. His crew, like the grips and the lighting crew, were from that show and from Cabinet of Curiosities and other shows he'd worked on, and they were I have no criticisms towards anybody that I've worked with in the past on music videos, but they were just such on another level, and coming to set and realizing that I need to be like the lead of these people and the creative lead of this shoot, I panicked a bit. And then after the first shot, I felt that was gone. It's actually the happiest I've ever been on set. But all of the pre-production was super intimidating. Again, going back to Walter Clausen, when I went in to have a meeting with them, and they hadn't even agreed yet, their boardroom table is the cover of the sleeping pod from Crimes of the Future, like encased in glass as a table. And when you're sitting there across from them, pitching them your project, the wall next to you has all of the armory from The Boys that's ever been in it. Also from the show C, the Apple Plus show with Jason Momoa where everybody's blind. So it's like, you're looking at all of this, and there's other shit in the room that you can see from your seat, like the fucking gloves from Cinderella Man and shit. And you're just like, so my little short film, and you're explaining it to them, So that was super intimidating. But everybody was so nice that we worked with that it washed that away a lot. And I think because a lot of them had such a good relationship with Jeremy that it helped. And because of some of the craziness of the short, and some of the, I guess, what you might consider vulgarity, they thought it was fun. Also, the footsteps people, like when I talked to Sandra Fox and her team who had done the Foley, they said, we've just spent the past week Foleying thousands of squeaky tennis shoe footsteps for Zendaya in the Luca Guadagnino movie that's coming out. So they were like, challengers, yeah. So they were like, it's like a nice relief, a break to be doing something different, So yeah, they were everybody was super nice, and it helped take away the intimidation.
Now, I already know the answer to this because, again, we were chatting. But when people go to watch Bath Bomb, you're going to find a very sumptuous, luxurious location for this, and you're going to say, "Where did they find such a thing?" It looks like like a high-end hotel. It looks like, in a nice big city and all that. And you have this wonderful vintage radio there, this wonderful like bathtub, deep soaker tub. Was it a clawfoot tub? I can't remember.
It was built onto like a platform, so it looks like it's it looks just raised and luxurious, like a tile platform that it's on.
But the reality of all of this, if you want to give it away to people, how did you set dress this? And also, I want to go back to the radio because your music in this is so spot on as well. So feel free, elaborate.
Yeah, so it was actually a studio. It was a brick wall studio. The room they were shooting it that we shot in actually used to be a bank vault, which was nice because it was great for sound. But we built everything. Like even there's a window. There's two windows actually, but one that is particularly large. It was not there. We built everything, and the tub is a tub that we brought in, and the platform, the nice tile platform it's on, actually had like little wheels underneath it so that we could move it for doing the split diopter stuff. Yeah, everything was built. We had a great art department that put in a lot of work doing that stuff. The vintage, it's a reel-to-reel player, and which is like ubiquitous in giallo. One of the things we wanted to do that they do in giallo is blur the line between diegetic music and non-diegetic music. There's a lot of random scenes. Like there's a movie, The Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion, where the villain, like the protagonist is coming to visit the villain, and right before she comes in, he like puts on a record, and then he goes to meet her, and they have like a confrontation that gets heated, and the music changes to match the emotional beats. And if you're paying attention, you're like, well, isn't that playing though on his record player? That makes no sense. So we wanted to do the same thing. I should have mentioned previously also our composers are incredible. There's a popular indie rock band called Warpaint that I love, and Teresa Wayman, who's the singer and guitarist from Warpaint, composed our score with her brother Ivan, who's a Grammy-nominated producer and engineer. He works with Adele and The Killers and Weezer. So they did like a Morricone, Risortolani, Nora Orlandi style lounge jazz bass score that you see starting as being played on the reel-to-reel, but then again similarly matches all the beats of the scene as though it's non-diegetic. And actually, if you really pay attention, when we cut to shots that are underwater, even the score is filtered, like mixed, so that it's like you're listening to it from underwater, so that it still matches the diegetic motivation of it being played in the room.
And I would love to talk a little bit just about the actors too. I mean, because there's a little. It's an interesting. I keep using the word interesting because I keep seeing things I haven't really seen before with this, and I love that. I love the whole aesthetic of the whole thing. There's a little bit of nudity. There's a little, well, from the ass end anyway. There's some ass nudity, and then you have these these guys who are, I think I already reviewed this for folks who haven't read it yet. Check it out over at FilmSnobbery.com. I really, my comment on it was that like they really went for it. Like it seemed like these actors for this type of thing had to be all in because they're in very vulnerable states. Did you have any problems directing any of that? Did you have any problems with, did any of the actors go like, oh yeah, I think I need a towel. I got to cover my manly parts or anything of that, or were they just like, fuck it, we're going?
They were both great. It was another benefit of working with people who were from these big productions is that they're very used to sets that have sensitive material. We had a great intimacy coordinator who helped, and for Anders, who played Jordan, who is not naked, he directing him was one of the benefits of working with somebody who has a lot of improv experience is that they absorb direction very quickly. He was very easy to redirect, and Daniel, who played Grant, who had to be naked for most of it. I mean, he's wearing like I forget what you call them, but it's like the little baggie that goes over your cocksock. That's right. He was wearing that pretty much all day. both days, but he he didn't have any issues. We had even set things up so that they could have taken longer. Like when he's outside of the tub, there's a part where he's injured and he's laying on the ground, and in between takes, we were going to artificially wet him down so that he didn't have to get up and expose himself. But he was very game, and he's like, wouldn't this be faster if I just get up and jump in the tub again and then lay down? And obviously it would be faster, so he just did that every time. And again, I think it was a lot of that was because of the professionalism of the people that we were working with, that I don't know would have been the same if I didn't have that caliber of crew.
Yeah, and going over to that scene where he's on the floor injured and stuff like that, we talked about a little bit about how like you had even gone so far as to make sure that you had done a little bit of research to make sure that like the effects that were a part of that scene, that part of the scene, were really accurate and that everything was good. You want to chat about that too?
Yeah, so he has it's a head injury. Essentially, falls and hits his head, and myself and the special effects folks, were looking at putting blood on the floor and like what's the most realistic amount, et cetera. We don't want it to look we want it to be like lurid but not crazily unrealistic. So I talked to an ER doctor who right away said, well, there would be no blood on the floor. He said that's actually like one of his pet peeves of movies where people have a fall and hit their head, for instance, because unless your skull completely broke open, there would not be enough blood to pool. Like a scalp injury, you would have blood in quite a bit because of it's very vascular, but it's not the capillaries. You're not going to have a pool of blood. He said the only place you would have blood out of is if you broke the skull potentially internally, you might bleed out of your nose and mouth. So that's what we did, and we didn't even have active bleeding. It was only when he would cough or something, some blood would come out. So we went pretty far into making sure that was at least somewhat realistic.
Well, man, that's all fantastic. I really appreciate it. You've been great to chat with and hang out with for the whole of the Panic Fest. We've been here for days and days now, and I'm going to leave with some nightmares, and I'm going to leave with some laughs in my belly, which is also nice. And I'm really excited to see what you're working on next. Is there anything you want to talk about next, or?
Sure. We do have the first feature expansion of several of Bath Bomb is in development. I have a development producer attached named Ronnie Exley, who was executive producer of Longlegs, a Nick Cage serial killer movie that comes out later this year. He helped put together the funding for production of that, and he's putting together the funding of production for this. So very fortunate to have that moving forward, and hopefully he's successful in duping people into funding what will be a pretty gross movie.
No, I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully we do it again at Panic Fest either next year or however long it takes you to make the next series of this. But until then, I think that this charade of festival going has gone on long enough. I think it's time. Actually, I got to go back to a hotel and drive away to another festival tomorrow. So let's safe travels to your next festival or back home, and hopefully people go and see Bath Bomb either at a festival near them or hopefully it'll be streaming or something sometime soon.
Yeah, hopefully after our festival run we'll be online somewhere. But thank you very much.
Thanks.